All right, so let's jump into today's discussion, audience, before we go to the news break and bring in the candidate for 36 for the One Bermuda Alliance, Karen Neblett. But the question of the morning, it seems that people don't understand the role of the media or have different ideas of what the media is supposed to be. You know, I've been very clear since we started this show. I'm not a journalist. And I have way too much respect for journalists to act as one. On this show, we don't interview people, we facilitate conversations. If you know me, you know I can't stand when people say, oh, you interview. I don't interview people. I have conversations with people. I have discussions. I facilitate conversations between guests and you, the audience, right? Journalists have a very different job. They present news stories. And it's various forms. It's not always investigative journalism. There's lifestyle. There's so many different forms. There's writing styles, reporting styles. I am not a journalist. I want to be very clear in that. I'm a talk show host. You've got Bill O'Reilly. You've got Joy Ann Reid and many others. Stephen A. Smith. They may have started as journalists, but they became talk show hosts. Oprah Winfrey started as a journalist, talk show host. Now, I understand from my time working in radio in Bermuda, especially the days when Thaao was at the height of morning radio in Bermuda. And people would always say, oh, you guys can't be biased. You're journalists. We're not journalists. Stop thinking that everyone in media falls under the same umbrella. That's a mistake we make. Especially when so many Bermudians tune in to media that aligns with their thoughts and are like, yeah, yep, uh-huh. Talk show hosts don't have the same responsibility as a journalist. Journalists, as Maya and Thaao will tell you, they have the responsibility to report fairly. I can have my biases. I'm not shy about my biases. I take accountability for my biases. And I'll address all of that a bit later. But the question of the morning is, what do you believe the role of the media is in the political process? What do you believe? And before we even get to that, do you believe that the media influences how people vote? Yes or no? Just a quick yes or no. Do you believe that the media influences how people vote? Yes or no? Do you believe that? Do you believe the media influences how people vote? Do you believe that? Just a quick yes or no. Do you believe the media influences how people vote? Brenda Simon says yes. Teray Tall says yes. Sean Smith says yes. Okay. Anyone else? Do you believe the media influences how people vote? And again, the other question, the question of the morning is, what do you believe the role of the media is in the political process? What do you believe the role of the media is in the political process? Mia Chambray on Instagram says yes. Another yes. All right. So Suzanne Ingham says, unfortunately, most yes. Sheikha Rana says yes. David Michael Wilson says yes. Sherilyn Johnson says yes. Janet Maynard says yes. So I'm going to put it up. I'm going to flip it, because Thaao and I discussed this before the show. Does the media influence how you vote? Does the media influence how you vote? And again, what do you believe the role of the media is in the political process? I'm glad David Michael Wilson shared this, because it goes against everything I just said. He said, role of the media, report the facts. That's not the role of the media. That's the role of journalists. But that's not the role of the media. Media has such a broad scope, especially in the podcast era. The role of the media is really to engage and share information. And that's part of the problem. We expect facts from the media. Unfortunately, we're not going to get facts. Now, from news journalists, that would be more realistic. All right. See, Thaao predicted this. Man, that boy a genius. He a genius. See, we discussed before. I said, Tay, let's ask, does the media influence how you vote? He says, no, they ain't going to be honest with that. So he said, well, do you believe the media influences how people vote? So remember when we asked, do you believe that the media influences how people vote? Everybody said yes. But then we asked, does the media influence how you vote? You say no. Interesting. Sean Smith says no. Brenda Simons, nope. Maurice Foley, no. Janet Maynard, no. Suzanne Ingham says the media should always report the facts fairly. Again, that's journalism. Shannon Smith says no. Thaao says people are working with limited cognitive abilities and time to be very well informed. The media tends to fill this gap by highlighting what people should be paying attention to, but otherwise may miss. The role of the media is to report platforms and intentions of various parties. Suzanne Ingham says, no, the media doesn't change my mind. Just give me facts given fairly. Thaao says, yes, the media influences my vote. I appreciate her. I really do, because she gets what the question. Not saying anyone else doesn't. Nicole also says, no, I watch and notice everything these politicians do in real time. David Michael Wilson says they shouldn't, but they do in most cases. Let me address what Nicole Hassel said. Let me address this real quickly, folks. And if you're tuned in to see if I'm going to touch on the guest, Reverend Dr. Emily Gail Dill, who was supposed to be on today in the PLP, yes, I will touch on that in a bit. Don't go anywhere. I will touch on that. But I want to focus on Nicole Hassel's comment. She says, no, the media doesn't influence her vote. I watch and notice everything these politicians do in real time. Bingo. I focus on the politicians and what they do. The media couldn't get me to like or dislike Donald Trump, for instance, or Joe Biden, or Barack Obama, or Kamala Harris. They could not do that for me, because I understand it a bit. I understand how media works, and it can be very influential. I want to know what policies are they speaking about, and how they'll impact my family, my friends, my community, and myself. Not just what they speak of, but what do they pass? What are they pushing for? The media has a very interesting role in all of this. To share information. There was a debate last night, very cordial, actually. I was impressed with the level of maturity in the debate last night. Two people from two different spaces. Now, and if you ask me, I felt that the journalists who were conducting it were very fair. I don't care what side of the fence you sit on, but you've got to admit, based on recent history, Donald Trump would have entered that space last night and immediately took issue with the moderators for whatever reason, because that's what he does. The media is the enemy. He's created this thing where the media is the enemy, right? That didn't happen. And yes, it got a little out of hand at one point. But the responsibility of the media as a whole is to ensure that people have access to information. Right? That's the responsibility. Journalists are there to provide stories. They're the ones that uncover the facts and truths. You know, the fact-checking thing. Sam Strangeways at the Royal Gazette. It's one of my favorite journalists. I love, there's not a journalist in Bermuda I really dislike. I mean, Sam Strangeways, I love Gary Foster Skeleton, and obviously my favorites here on the Daily Hour, Taylor and Maya, right? But Sam Strangeways, she's a gem. She's the only one really in Bermuda that's doing any form of investigative journalism on a regular basis. I know you all have your issues with Trevor. Trevor's a national treasure too, whether you like him or not. He is providing a service that you all love. It's about bringing information to you. What you choose to do with that information, that's on you. That's on you. One of the things I challenged myself to do when I was doing media courses in school is to tune in to things that I don't agree with. I told you the other day, that's how I started watching Bill O'Reilly. I'm like, this guy's crazy. How could he say that? I spent many years watching MSNBC. If we're not allowing ourselves to absorb different perspectives, then is everything that we're absorbing from what aligns with our beliefs fact or satisfying our feelings? Sean DeShields says, quote, the media is the most powerful entity on earth, as they have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, end quote, Malcolm X. One of my favorite quotes, actually. One of my favorite quotes. The thing I love about doing this show, and I'll share it a bit later, we allow you to be a part of the information that we're sharing. But I want to say this because I want to bring Thaao in, and I want to bring Mr. Neblet in a bit early so that he has the same amount of time that the other candidates had. But I want to say this regarding the absence of the PLP candidate, Reverend Dr. Emily Gail Dill, not just this morning, but last night on TNN. Thaao, who is the youngest and newest member of the Daily Hour team, suggested that we have all the candidates on this show to engage with our audience in the lead up to this by-election. We agreed and eventually made changes to our scheduling to accommodate each candidate. Unfortunately, we were notified by email on Monday afternoon that the PLP candidate was no longer available to appear on the show. Reverend Emily Gail Dill, who has been, she's contesting the by-election for the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party. She's someone we at the Daily Hour greatly appreciate for her support and engagement on a regular basis. We believe that she deserved the same time on this platform as those she's going up against. It's only right and fair that she gets to engage with the very community that she's a part of. And it seems this decision was beyond her. To be clear, we have had various people from the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party on this show recently. Unless they don't consider Curtis Dickinson a member of the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party, well, he was on less than a month ago. Unless they don't consider the Premier's right-hand man, Senator and Minister Owen Darrell, who was on in May, then I don't know what to tell you. Let me say this. As a show, we don't lean in any particular political direction. Each host is allowed to support who they choose and feel how they feel, as long as they're not derogatory or defaming anyone. We each have our own biases and political leanings, but we are not CNN, Fox, MSNBC, or any of those political leaning organizations. We value perspectives not only from our hosts, but also from our audience. So in closing, I want to say this. When I say that I'm an equal opportunity offender, it isn't some sort of catchphrase. It's who I am. So it's fascinating to me when supporters of any political party claim that I'm anti that organization, especially when I'm equally critical of the others. It's actually not that I'm anti anything, but I'm pro Bermuda and Bermudian. If anything, I feel that the governing of Bermuda has been anti Bermuda and anti Bermudian for far too long. So instead of focusing on who you believe is anti this or that, focus on how the organization you support can do better. Remove the ego, take accountability, and face the concerns of the people you represent. My mind can be changed, and I'm pretty sure there are others like me out there too. But to the government and anyone seeking political office, please don't be so arrogant that you ignore the very people that you may someday meet, just not just in politics, but in life. And I say everything I just said with love, all love, and I mean it. Bermuda needs a comeback. And as long as we have people who are willing to go down with the Titanic, the comeback's not on. Spring Thaao Dillon for Daily Hour Newsbreak. And we've got Carl Nablett, the candidate for the One Bermuda Alliance, coming up after that.
Hey, morning, Jay. Thank you very much for what you just said, making it plain, as we always should at least attempt to do. Now, what I wanted to ask you is, do you remember, like back in the day when we were together on Hot, how folks, talked about us in the same way? But it's just the hard enemy was the UBP.
Thaao, I know you stepped away just now. I literally said that. When you were the height of Bermuda Morning Radio, they would say, "Oh, you guys can't be biased. You're this and that." Like I literally, Thaao, like Thaao said, the UBP at the time.
And the thing that's really interesting, and I've talked to you about this 1,000 times over the years. The thing that frustrates me the most is this weird American-driven presumption that media outlets have to be neutral, right? In the history of media all around the world, every single space outside the U.S. doesn't make that pretense, right? They are obligated to report the facts, obviously, but they have their ideological positions. And they're transparent with their audience. Like, I believe these things about the world, and it shapes my interpretation of real events. Now, I'm going to tell you what those real events are, but I'm also going to tell you my interpretation. And the reason that's fine is because I've been transparent about my ideological basis. Like in the UK, they have the Guardian and they have the Telegraph. Everybody knows it has always been one on the left, one on the right, and everybody's fine with it. But in America, ever since the Reagan era, they've had this weird obsession with like the pretense of our objectivity, and I can't stand it because it means that they're lying from jump as opposed to being clear. Sorry, let's get to the news.
No, thank you for saying that, because I think we don't understand as a small community the role of the media, and we are bringing American like okay. And the thing is, most people watch American TV, right? So you watch MSNBC. Joy Reid is not shy about her political bias.
Which is good. Like, I want to know.
Sean Henry was not shy about his political bias. It's weird to me how people act. I'm very honest about my bias. I've been honest about my bias from jump, whether it's come to tourism or governments.